So it's been a month since Final Cut Pro was updated to 10.0.6, and I've waited this time to become familiar with the new features and to understand their implications. And I'm so pleased I did, because what was not immediately obvious was what such a big difference 10.0.6 actually makes to the editing process, where the features themselves may be not the major headliners that 10.0.3 offered, like Multicam. The subtleties of 10.0.6, this new update, have certainly decreased the overall amount of time required in the editing process. So I'm really pleased with the results. This latest update, 10.0.6, has considerably improved the flexibility of Final Cut Pro, but it has not increased anyway significantly the learning curve. So let's look at the new features, first as a list and then in detail. The big headliner features are, first of all, the global unified import. So when you import now, you don't go to select import from camera or import from file. In fact, you're importing everything from one unified location. So cameras appear in this section up here. Your list of attached devices are here. Any archives that you've created are now here rather than where they were previously at the bottom. And you can also have favorites selected here. When you select a different hard drive or a different camera, then the imports look very much as they would do in your Finder location. So I can select a hard disk here. This is the main editing hard disk, and these are all the files on that hard disk that appear in a similar way that you would see them on the Finder itself, so that we can look inside a folder and we can see various movie files in those folders, or they may be JPEGs. We can directly go to any camera footage on that hard disk. So here's a camera here, this is card 2 in a particular camera, and if we select that card, then all of that camera footage will show. And there are those camera files now coming online, and if we select those, there's the footage that can be perused. So the unified process makes it simple, just one way of getting at everything. And we'll end. There are vastly improved sharing processes simply by now going to the middle menu bar. You can call up your share options. These are the presets that have been installed. Some of these are extras to the defaults. You can also go to the file menu and select sharing from there. This is exporting to whatever style you want. The major advantage here is that once you select a process to share, so we'll just quickly share this one to the hard disk, that process then goes into the background, and while that sharing is in progress, we can select other options. We can do anything else in Final Cut, but the sharing is now happening here, and we can see what process it's in. Now, if I was to share a second item now, this particular project, and go to the share menu and select that one to export, we'll export that one, save it to the location. And now when we check in the monitor, we can see there's the current one that's being processed, 5% has happened, and in the queue is the second one and any others. The total amount of sharing that has taken place is 3%, because there are 2 in the queue. And what this process has done is it's replaced the share monitor, that separate application which is now no longer used. It's all integrated into Final Cut. The next headline feature that we will discuss is the multicam or multi-audio feature. In the inspector we can see angle 1 is turned on and it's stereo. we can turn on the other two angles directly here. Angle 1, and it's 2-channel stereo. We've got angle 2, and it's dual mono, and you can see it's dual mono here. And we've got angle 3, which is 2-channel stereo, and you can see that's 2-channel stereo there. Now, in and out points are now retained. Added to the fact that they are retained, and you can see them here, these slightly yellowed greyed outlines are the in and out points for this particular edit that's in progress. One of the subtle increased feature with this is that you can now add extra in and out points to any one clip. So this particular clip here is in and out points there. In previous versions of Final Cut that had in and out points as retainable, when you set new in and out points you replace the old ones. But in this version, if we hold the Shift key and add a new in and out point, you'll see that the old one is still retained and the new one is here. To remove an in and out point, it's a matter of holding the Option key, and that takes those in and out points out. In 10.0.6, we can now have two viewers. So here's the viewer that we normally would be looking at in previous versions of Final Cut 10. If we now go to the window menu, you see you can have an event viewer as well as a project viewer. So if I have the playhead in the project, that footage is showing here in this viewer, yet the event footage is showing in this viewer here. And as with other versions, you can increase or decrease those to suit. Added to the new major features, red camera support, and also native MFX file support. Another major feature change is the ability now to copy and paste attributes. So not only do you have the ability, as you did have in earlier versions of Final Cut 10, the ability to copy and paste effects, where all of the effects are pasted onto a new clip. Now you have the ability to copy and paste attributes so that you can choose between those attributes, and we'll look at that in more detail in a few minutes. You now can select a range within an edit, and that range can be exported rather than having to export the whole project. We can select an in point and an out point, and that range now can be exported using any of the export presets. There's a single one-step freeze frame available. So if we are in the timeline here, let's zoom into the timeline, and I select this particular clip. With the Option F, you can see now that a freeze frame of whichever frame the playhead was parked on has now been added to the timeline. That freeze frame can be moved to different tracks if you wish. Chapter markers are another headline act. So by selecting the M key and then clicking the N key again, we have a marker there that's a standard blue marker. If we select this one here, this is a to-do marker, and then there is the chapter marker. You can rename that, of course. And once you've done that, you can then change which frame is to be the frame that will appear in that chapter marker by moving this point here. We can also create a marker by pressing the M key, and then with the right click on that marker, and we get the option to create either a standard to-do or chapter marker, but also we get the opportunity to modify that, copy it, and paste it somewhere else. So we could now paste that marker into this location here. You can see we now have a new marker there. Compound clips are available, so you can right click and create a compound clip, and what happens with the compound clip is that you can rename that, decide which event to send it to, and that compound clip is now added to the event, which can then be reused in other projects. One of the more subtle changes to Final Cut Pro is in the viewer. When we now right click in the viewer, we can directly select the transform, crop or distort, rather than having to go to the list down the bottom here. If you don't want to right click, you can click on this drop down arrow and transform, crop and distort appear there. Among the other smaller changes, you now have the ability to blade all. So if we have a number of clips and we hold the Shift key down and press the Command key and the B key, we can put a blade through all of the clips, no matter how many are in a row. One of the advertised features of Final Cut was the new drop shadow effect, but you'll find that there are a number of new titles and a number of new generators in the standard items provided by Final Cut. But perhaps more significant, and certainly under the hood, over the time that I've been using Final Cut 10.0.6 now, I've experienced better stability. There are certainly many less crashes, and the overheads in the background rendering seem to be a lot less. The background processing is now rumoured to be up to 3,000% faster. I suspect that that may be a bit of an exaggeration, but now that the GPU is being used and not just the processor in the computer, certainly there is a lot more processor power, and this is obvious and is seen when you're using Final Cut with the smoothness of the operation, with less green screens and less crashes. Now let's have a look at some of the features that we've mentioned in more detail. The flexibility of the different audio tracks on your different cameras has been significantly improved with the update version 10.0.6. Now you can select at any time within the Multicam edit itself which of the tracks that you would like to use, and not only that, you can split up each track into left and right channels and perhaps just select one of those channels. So if you're using a separate microphone on input 1, you can just select input 1, or you can mix it with any number of the other tracks on the attached cameras. So let's have a look at this particular clip here. Now, if we want to expand the audio components to see all available tracks, if we look over here in the inspector, we can see angle 1 is turned on and it's stereo. Now, for the moment, we can't select mono. I'll come back to that in a second. But we can turn on the other two angles directly here. And so that we've got angle 1 and it's 2-channel stereo. We've got angle 2 and it's dual mono, and you can see it's dual mono here. And we've got angle 3, which is 2-channel stereo, and you can see that's 2-channel stereo there. Now, if we had a input on the angle 3, that's this camera here, and we wanted to use the left or the right channel, at this point in time, it won't let us select that. We need to change it in the original, and to do that, we'll need to go back to the original clip. Now, that's in the browser. If you don't know where the original clip is, and let's say we can't see it, we can simply right-click on the clip in the timeline. This is the Multicam clip in the timeline. Reveal in Event Browser. That shows the clip up here in the browser. We can double-click that clip, and there it is showing in its own timeline broken up into the separate clips. But to make the changes, we need to make those changes in the event browser here. We will just select that, and then coming over here we can see we've got angle 3 and it's currently stereo. We'll now make that dual mono. We'll get a warning to say that this is going to change all audio components that are attached to this parent clip. In this case we do want to do that, so select OK. And there is usually a significant delay for this to happen because quite a lot is happening in behind. We can go back to our Multicam edit in the timeline, and we can see that the third angle, that's camera 3, this angle here, has now become a dual mono track. And if our lapel microphone or whatever microphone we want to isolate is on the left hand side, we would turn off mono 2 so that only the left channel appears, and then we can see the left channel here. If we want to make adjustments to these, we can simply raise and lower the independent tracks left and right should we want to. We can also go to particular sections, and because the cursor has automatically now changed to a range tool, we can click, and as we drag over the clip, that range is selected. As soon as you increase the level or decrease the level, then you'll see those keyframes appear. You'll see down here we've decreased the level over that range, and there's a key point there, a key point here, a key point here, and a key point here. And when I click away, you will see those keyframes, and they are adjustable. To collapse the audio components, go back to where it said expand audio, it's now collapse audio, and they go back into the original clip, and you can show your extended audio if you want to, and then all of the tracks contained in that are then faded in or extended or shortened. The way that Final Cut handles compound clips has been slightly changed at some advantage and a slight downside that is fairly irrelevant once you get used to it. The first thing that we should look at is to make a compound clip is in fact the same way. So we've got a group of clips here that we want to compound them. We could simply select all of those clips. I've just used the Command A function. We could go here and select all. Now, by right-clicking on those clips, we can create the compound clip as previously. And now it asks us to give that compound clip a name. And what in fact it's doing, and this is where the advantage comes in, is it's now creating that compound clip and putting it into the event browser for later use. So if we have a look in the event browser here, that's that whole clip in the event browser that can be reused in another project. In the timeline itself, there's no change. The compound clip looks as it did originally. The difference is that we can no longer right-click on it and break it apart. But we can right-click on it and open it in the timeline, and then that opens it up as its own timeline, allowing us to make any adjustments that we want to on that. Then simply we can go back to the original edit, which is now compounded, and continue with that edit. As of version 10.0.6, the pasting of effects has been upgraded considerably, and you now have the option of paste attributes. One of the problems with paste effects is that if you copied from one clip and then pasted the effects to the other clip, all of the effects from the original copied clip would be pasted to the new clip. So let's take an example here of this clip where the effects on this clip include a white balance function where the brightness has been increased. But also on this clip, if we right click, we look at the transform, we can see that this clip has also been slightly adjusted. So it's been adjusted so that the walls look straighter, or the lines of the wall look vertical to the edge of the clip. Now if we were to copy this clip, and that would be Command C, or go to the edit menu and use copy. Then if we look at another clip here that might need brightening, and this one here needs to have the same brighten effect put on it as that clip. So if we look at this clip, no color adjustments have been made to this. If we were to simply now use the command Option V or go to the edit menu and paste effects, then not only has that clip been brightened, but it's also been slightly rotated because all of the effects attached to the original copied clip have now been applied to this clip. So if we Command Z that and go back and look at this clip, this is the one we copied, so just to make sure we copy it again, and then come to this clip here, the one that we want to apply those effects to. We only want to apply the color effect, not the rotation or the transform effect. So if we go up to the edit menu now, we see that we have a new command called paste attributes. And what this does is bring up an option now of all of the features that are attached to the currently copied clip in the pasteboard. And you'll see the white balance plugin has been attached or is showing there. It's copying from this clip and it's going to paste to that clip so you can visually see what's going to happen. And we can now simply say we just want to paste the white balance plugin and not the transform. So if we now paste that, you will see that this clip goes lighter, but it hasn't been transformed or rotated. So just to explain a little more, you can add numerous effects to any clip and those effects will be shown. So this is the clip that we were copying from. Let's now add another effect to that clip. Let's use the flipped effect, and that simply flips it around. If we were to now copy this clip and try to paste that onto this clip here, there's the clip. If we now use the paste attributes or the Shift Command V, so Shift Command V, we can now see that the flipped effect has been added to the number or the choice of effects that we can change. As of the update 10.0.6, Final Cut Pro 10 now retains in and out points as it did in Final Cut 7, though in typical Apple fashion, this has been done with some added flair and some slightly better features. The first thing that we should note is that when we're looking at our clips and we want to set an in point, we know that if we set an I key, that creates an in point, and if we select an O key, now if we move to the next clip, and in this case we'll just do the skimming drag from the in point to the out point. If you look back into the previous clip, you will see some slightly yellow and grey lines indicating the previous in and out points. And this is where the extra feature comes from Final Cut 7. If we hold now the Shift key and select a new set of in and out points, you'll see that when we move to this clip over here, there are two in and out points in this one clip retained. What you can't have though is that the two in and out points or the two retained in and out points cannot overlap with common footage. If you should want to do that, you'll see a little later there is a way of doing this with the favorites feature. Now we can set another set of in and out points, let's say in this clip here, and if we want to now set all of our in and out points, we can simply select the Command A on the keyboard, and you'll see that all clips are selected. Now the ones that no in and out points were selected have been completely selected, but those where there were in and out points set, only the in and out points are selected. If we should only want to select the content between the in and out points for the 3 clips that we have set in and out points for, we can simply use the Command key on each of those clips, and you'll see that the in and out points for those 3 clips have been selected independently. If we want to select all of this clip here, we can simply hold the Command key again, and selecting that clip, we select the whole content of that clip because no in and out points were selected. And just to add to that, if we select in and out points here, then we select this clip, this clip, this clip, and this clip, you'll see that the in and out points for the clips that have been selected are retained, and the full content of this clip is retained because no in and out points were selected. Now that all of these in and out points have been selected in the events library, we can edit them all into the timeline with one stroke. And there is one thing though you should be aware, that the order that they are put into the timeline is in the order that they are selected in the event library. So let's follow. If I were to click on this clip here and select it, this is the one with the balloons, just remember that, and then select on this one, and this one, then this one, and then this one. When I edit those into the timeline with the E key, you will notice that if we look in the timeline, the balloons is the first one to go in because that was the one we selected in the event library first, and then the others in the order that they were selected. And finally, if we have in and out points in a clip and you want to remove those in and out points, if you hold your Option key down and click within the in and out point, then those in and out points are deselected. To set new in and out points, it's simply a matter of clicking on the clip as per usual and dragging to the portion that you want to retain, and those in and out points are now there. If we move to another clip, you can see that those in and out points in this clip are retained. If we want to extend them or shorten them, they are there to change. If we want to remove them, hold the Option key down and click, and that removes them. So you can set in and out points here, and if we hold the Command key down, we can set another set of in and out points within the same clip. The only thing you can't do within that clip is to have the in and out points overlapping. In previous versions of Final Cut, you were not able to export a portion of a movie. You had to, in fact, export your whole project. Now, this meant that if you just wanted to export a small amount of footage, you had to create a new project. Well, this is overcome in this version of Final Cut, where now you can select within your project a range, and it can be done either as selecting an in point by pressing the I key, and selecting an out point by selecting the O key, and that range there between this point and here will be exported. You can adjust those levels, or you could go to the range tool here in the toolbar and simply click and hold and drag a range. So either of those processes work. Once you've selected a range, you can then come to your export or your share options here, and we can then select what type of file we want to export. Let's just send it as a master file in this case. and we'll see what all these different options here. Now you'll notice that in this portion of the display that we're looking at, it is showing the range symbol and showing the length of that particular range. It's going as a QuickTime movie. The size will be 116 megabytes. This is the aspect ratio, the frame rate, and the audio is in stereo. Now we can change the way that we create these here by selecting a different codec. Now in this case it's currently ProRes 422, but we could, if we wish, change it to H.264, and then we'll notice here that the size has been reduced. So when it was ProRes it was 116. Now at H.264 we've reduced the size because it's compressed. We can't change the resolution though. We can change whether in fact we're going to open it with any particular player or directly to compressor, but in this case we'll do nothing, so it won't open as anything, and it will save it as whatever role you wish to be saved. Let's leave that at QuickTime Movie, and again once we press the next button here it will ask us to name that file and ask us what location on the finder we want to send it. Let's assume that we want to export our whole project, and let's look at the various options that are available in the Share menu. Now these are the presets that are currently in this Share option. They are not the default ones because others have been added to my listing, and to add a new destination you can simply select the new Add Destination. And what this has done is it's in fact gone to the Preferences menu and opened up the Preferences menu that now has a new tab allowing you to add or delete different presets. Now we notice that there's no email one in there, but here's a preset for email, so we can drag that and position it in whichever location we want to. So now email is going to appear in the presets, and we can select our particular requirements for each of these. So if we set for the H.264, we can select whether in fact by default it will only have audio or video, or obviously we would want to have the preset set at audio and video, but remembering from just looking previously, we can change those settings on the fly when we do the export anyway. We can include chapter markers or not as in the preset. Now once we change that and then go back to our presets here, we can see there's that new one we've added as an email option. Now added to this, not only can you add the new destinations, but we can add an extra export file. Now we've already got an export file there, as you might notice, but now we can, in this particular export file, we've got audio and video as our preset option. On this one, export file 1, we could have just audio only and change the name of this to export file audio only, and then when we close that and go to our presets over here, we can see we've got the audio only preset as well as our standard preset, and the same applies when we come over here to the Share menu. We can see that that preset has been added to the Share menu, and there's the email one that we added a little earlier. In previous versions of Final Cut, connected clips have always moved or stayed connected to the clips in the storyline. So if we select these 3 clips here in the storyline, we can see that this group of connected clips is connected to those 3 in the storyline. Under normal situations, if you were to move the clips in the storyline, the connected clips stay with them. If you were to delete the clips in the storyline, the connected clips are also deleted. I'm Command Z now to go back. With this new feature, with the tilde key held down, If I move the clips in the storyline, you'll see the connected clips stay in place. And so that if I was to put these clips in here, in a different location, the connected clips stay where they were, now connected to different clips in the storyline. I'll Command Z that again. So here are the 3 clips. And if I delete those now, then the connected clips will go away. If you have enjoyed and found this information interesting, this is an example of our app which is currently on the Mac App Store called Learn Final Cut X, and it's available now for download from the Mac App Store. See the description below for a link to the Mac Store.